Good evening to our friends. Good evening to our friends in India and good morning to our friends in Brazil. On behalf of Invest India, Startup India, and the Embassy of Brazil in New Delhi, a very warm welcome to the India-Brazil Fintech webinar. I'm Shivangi, Head Corporate and Global Partnerships for Startup India.
Hi, very good evening. My name is Athar Mangotia, and I represent Invest India as part of the fintech team over here.
Hello, good evening and good morning, everyone. My name is Pedro Silva. I'm the head of Science, Technology, Innovation section of the Brazilian Embassy in New Delhi.
Thank you everyone for joining us. In the last few decades, as the traditionally developed economies, the USA, Japan, and Germany have been growing at a steady economic pace. Countries such as India and Brazil have emerged as the new global economic powerhouses, firmly establishing themselves as the top 10 economies and the backbone of the modern economic landscape.
India and Brazil have several commonalities that has led them to become this in this current to rise to give them prominence to their economic prominence that they are currently facing. Some of the factors which have led them to this situation include the strong infrastructure and logistics growth, strong government policies and planning, a strong consumption and consuming population, education, skill development, growth, and obviously a rise in foreign investments. The two nations are on an upward trajectory for economic growth as well, with marketplaces fertile with innovation and disruption, an entrepreneurial mindset deeply embedded into their societies, enabling of technology across the various sectors, and a strong focus on financial inclusion across the population. With the onset of the global pandemic in 2020, the fintech market in both countries have now moved both from a nascent stage just a decade ago to a more mature role of problem solving, and as the push towards digitization, inclusion, and innovation has become the need of the hour. Fintechs are now more critical in both ecosystems than ever, as traditional models of scaling and expansion have now evolved to include newer models of depth and reach. There also have evolved and emerged several fintech opportunities markets for further rapid innovation, growth, and dominance.
We have today here the pleasure to gather specialists, fintech specialists from both countries, both representatives from the private sector, but also from the governmental sector, who will talk to us about the current and future role that fintech is playing in their respective markets, and also will also explain how the fintech sector has been supporting both countries in navigate these uncharted waters of the pandemic. The webinar is a follow-up of the first India-Brazil Fintech Conference that took place in Mumbai last year, in April last year, and can also be considered a curtain raiser for the second edition of the conference, which will happen in São Paulo as soon as COVID-19 is under control. We would like now to move on to the first part of the webinar with some presentations from representatives from both countries about the effect that the pandemic has had on both fintech ecosystem. We would start now with Sunanda from the Mumbai Fintech Hub. Niti?
All right, thanks, Pedro. I will just share my screen, so give me a moment. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, Suniti, we can.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Pedro. Thanks, Shivangi. Thank you for arranging this. This is indeed a great opportunity. I strongly believe in such kind of collaboration opportunity where we can actually share knowledge. And I shouldn't, but I will still say that thanks to the COVID pandemic situation where we're able to actually take out time and participate in such sessions. And this is indeed, I would really look at more and more such virtual conferences probably are going to come in future. So I remember, Pedro, last year the session had happened in Mumbai. So even though I was there in Mumbai, I couldn't join the session. But strongly, I do believe every point that Shivangi, Athar, and Pedro had mentioned, like these two countries, how it is coming up, and how there is a strong uh, power both countries have. And when it comes to fintech sector, there is a lot of learning that we can actually share across, and that's where I do strongly believe that there's a lot of opportunity that actually emerge for working together. So having said that, I know there are many industry specialists who are there who will be sharing their knowledge as a part of the panel. So I would not get into a lot of details. I'll just spend few minutes just to set the context on where we stand, how does it look like, uh, what was there before COVID and how does it look like at this point in time. And we can just together we can really look at how does the future look like, probably a new future look like from now on. So for sure, anyone who is in this session knows what's happening in India, how does it look like. So let me just pull this screen. So last 5+ years, the fintech sector in India actually matured drastically. And this is something we have actually seen that what growth means since 2015 till today. The numbers here will actually show how fast we moved in this. Whether it is the investment that have come through, the number of fintechs that have actually the new entrepreneurs who have all come through, the number of unicorns that have come here, the total number of startups that we have in the fintech sector. So while we look at all these things, again, I shouldn't just just a 2000 plus number might not looked at the quality of the richness of the ecosystem, knowing that the kind of country we have, the kind of problem statements we have, the kind of market we have. I think this 2000 number is still less, and we'll be really looking at like this number going up. And while this number is going up, we'll be actually looking at how the real problems are getting addressed. And since last 5+ years, that's what we have actually seen, and that is what you'll actually see here, how the funding trend is there. So net this is what is the positive trend. And you will see this little tilted towards payment and lending sector. But as we see, we actually have seen a lot of movement even in the other areas, whether it is investment, whether it is insurance, whether it is the alternate credit kind of sector that is coming up. There are various players who are even trying out wealth, agrifin, health fin. So all these sectors, while the numbers are less, but then these are like promising sector, which we actually see there are many entrepreneurs who are trying to solve very deep problems in these sectors. So I'll not go through a lot of these names, numbers. You all would be aware of. So this is just like quick snapshot of what we have and how does it look like. So having said that, like this is all the goodness of it. This is where we stand. But how did it happen? What were the key leverage? Just to refresh our memory. Uh, of course, one key leverage had always been the active mobile penetration that we have seen in last 5 years in the country. And this is again, I'm sure, a country like Brazil, there is a lot of region that actually happen here. The kind of percentage of smartphone penetration that is there in both countries is one key reason for the growth that we actually have seen. So while this is an important lever, I strongly believe, and I'm sure the ecosystem does believe in this, along with lot of government initiatives that have happened in last five. I mean, actually, it is a decade, but then last 5 years is where we have actually seen what has been created was the strong foundation, and that is where our sector actually moved up. So look at whether it's UPI, or it is a DigiLocker, or it's the UID that has been created. All those things are available as a public good, and our current entrepreneurs are actually innovating on top of that. That is where this whole magic and this whole growth has been possible, because of such kind of strong digital infrastructure that has been laid out by government. So while these infrastructures have been there in the recent in the recent past, we have seen the new the account aggregator framework that actually came through. So whatever was already there and the new account aggregator framework, you marry that with our strong regulatory movement that's happening as we speak. All our regulators, it's RBI, SEBI, IRDA, all the regulators have moved forward. All of them have put in their regulatory sandboxes primarily to see how the new innovations come through, how like in a shorter span things can be worked out. So this is actually the real positive change, and this is what I'm really very happy with to see, which can actually accelerate the moment. It has accelerated the moment, and with the active participation of regulator in this, in these times, will actually take it to the next level. And even I represent Government of Maharashtra, the Mumbai FinTech Hub entity, and as a part of that also we have seen, like, the API sandbox that we have created, the kind of framework we have created. Working with the ecosystem is what actually is the only way out. Gone are those days where we used to work in silos, and we just cannot imagine innovation going to the next level if we work in silos. So these are good things. These are things that we are proud of, and this is the reason why the fintech sector is where it is at this point in time. So while we talk about these things, we're ready to, like, go to the next accelerator, move fast. So last 3 months, I think we all know how hard it has been, for everyone. So fintech sector as a whole, I won't say that, like, it's all a rosy picture and all good about it. Having said that, my heart bleeds for a lot of companies who are folded in this situation. While there are, like, so many negative parameters, there are so many sessions where we talk about how bad the situation is, how economy is going down, and so on and so forth. So in my slides, I'm not going to talk about the bad parameters. The way I would just, like, uh, set the context here is, while there are so many issues, while there are, like, everybody is talking about the problems all around, I would look at it more as a whether the glass is half full or a half empty, and the approach that the sector is taking, the fintech sector is taking, is more of a half full. Let's really look at where we stand, and let's really see what are the opportunities that are available, and move forward with that. Let's make a change wherever we can make a change. So it's definitely not about the COVID impact has happened and then tomorrow we'll just come out of it. I think we don't know when that tomorrow is. So it's good for the sector, it's good for everyone, all of us, whether it is government or private sector, or, like, any fintech startup, large company, medium sized company, everyone. The mantra is just find out, just stay put, just, like, bring in the right change, and that's how we can actually tackle this pandemic scenario. So coexisting with COVID is the call of the hour. So I'll just, like, pause here on this slide for a few minutes, because this is exactly what I just wanted to like, set the context here. We'll not get into, like, any numbers and how does it look like. I'm sure there are industry people who will be putting more focus on the numbers and details. So while we know it's a bad situation, while we know that savings and lending and your investments will be, like, going down, lending, like, the situation is really bad, we all know about it. Of course demand is going down. So how that while all these are, like, problems that we talk about, we also know that this is a situation scenario where everyone is going to really go forward for digitizing the whole thing. If you remember, like, few years back, demonetization happened in India, and when demonetization had was announced, if I'm not wrong, the probably like it's almost 3 years. So it actually gave way to lot of payment companies to the penetration actually went up. So if you really look at it, this pandemic actually has got us a situation where we probably this is the moment where a lot of things that was not happening in a fast track mode is going to happen now. And while fintechs do have the advantage of technology where they stand, but if you really look at, there are a lot of banking institutes, there are a lot of NBFCs, a lot of MFIs, they were still far off. And I can really relate to companies who had been trying to a lot of B2B, B2B2C companies who had been trying to partner with such kind of firms. And probably it was not happening, and it was meeting after meeting after meeting. But then if you really look at it, this is the time. If there are things that had not happened through, this is the time where we will see that those kind of stuff will actually move through. Whatever had not happened in a year, probably you'll see that in months things will happen. This is something I would say is a great opportunity for the fintech sector to really start looking at. So while this is in play, sectors like payment, I mean, for sure, it actually had the numbers went down because of the lockdown, but then as we see, it is actually coming up, and thanks to the UPI infrastructure that had already been there, there is the payment numbers in the recent future for sure will be moving up. And I know the Reserve Pay person is there. I'm sure he will be sharing lot of details about how does it look like. Similarly, while we know and everybody is aware that lending kind of a sector, it is bad. Lending sector is bad, like in a single line, if I have to say. But I mean, as we speak, I have seen a note where a agri fintech company called J Kisan, who actually lends to farmers, those guys have raised their next round. This is a young fintech who actually have done disbursed loan in the order of 50 crores in last 3 months. And this is something that even they were not thinking that they will be able to do it during this kind of a situation. But if you really look at it, there is a surge. There is a surge in the agri domain, and that's an area that probably has been waiting to see more innovation, more tech play, and this is something I would say these are early positive signs. And probably we will see much more such kind of positive news in the lending sector as we move through, and as the consumption picks up, we also will see a lot of increase in that sector. Similarly, if you really see insurance as a sector, as a country, insurance penetration had been very low. And this is something I would say probably this pandemic is actually bringing out the other side of it. And this has shown those early signs of good insurance penetration. We have actually seen even there are some fintechs who have taken the advantage of such kind of a situation, and they have actually rolled out even specific COVID insurance kind of things. And this has long way to go, and we'll actually see much more new proposition in this arena. So net all, I mean, again, I will say, while there are some red there, but there are some green dots there, and I am more inclined to see those green dots in all along. So going to the next slide, I've just called out few names. I'll not get more deeper into it, but whatever I have mentioned in the core, that's what I'll just reiterate on. All these things, embracing the lockdown, and really looking at how partnerships and collaborations can happen, how keeping it transparent, how we look at consumer from a different lens, how creating trust with consumer is so very important at this point in time, while everything is going digital. So this whole scenario, this all examples whatever we have mentioned, I really look at these are the positive signs of growth. These are the positive signs where we're actually moving towards a better era, while the pandemic is still on, whether it is Pay Nearby or a Zerodha or a Bharat Pay or a MoneyGram. These are all all examples which are there in market, and I'm sure like a lot of the fintech companies can actually look at it and really see like what is the change that that needs to be done and should be done. So that actually brings to, I mean, I would just summarize here and we'll leave it here that net the sector has lot to do. Uh, there is, and this is the time that we need to relook at everything. We need to relook at how our cost structure looks like, how we are spending here, how can we optimize it, how we look at our business models, is it in the right way, how we can leverage what is already there. If I'm a payment startup, can I leverage the merchant like connect that I have, and then like really pivot it and start lending to them? Or if I have a base, can I really look at connecting with the kirana stores and take advantage of the distribution that I already am sitting in? Or like look for different kind of a, if you are already connected in, let's say, farmers, then can we really look at also rolling out insurance? So just looking at it with a different lens probably will show the different opportunities that have come through at this point in time. And those opportunities, I mean, all these like new problems and new opportunities is actually the call of the hour. And if we all as a ecosystem focus on that, I'm sure we all will come out of it. And as government, we are really uh, with with all our heart, we're really with the ecosystem to bring it out of wherever there are hurdles that are out there. We'll love to work with the ecosystem to bring it out. And in this whole process, if you see, there are a lot of opportunities will actually rise even from government sector standpoint, because there is so much stuff that is happening, and government will be doing a lot of push to increase the penetration all along. So keeping an eye on all such kind of problem statements, all such kind of opportunities is what will actually help us in coming out of this pandemic. So with that, I'll stop here. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Suniti, for the detailed and insightful presentation. I'm sure that gives a very good overview to our audience in terms of where the lending in the payment market and also the fintech market in India stands. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with the audience.
Thank you, Shimon.
I'm also now very, very pleased to introduce Ms. Ingrid Bach, Director of Brazilian Association Fintechs, also known as AB Fintech, which is the largest association of fintechs in Brazil. Welcome, Ms. Ingrid.
Hello, everyone. I just include my presentation here, but I don't know if the button is allowed. Oh, no. Just,
Ingrid, we'll just plug in the presentation from our end and you'll have access to switch the slides.
Now? Are you seeing?
Ingrid, we'll just plug in the presentation from our side and you'll have the access to switch the slides.
Okay. Do you have it? Perfect. Perfect. So thank you so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here for the second time, not in India, but presenting the Brazilian fintech space, and then what we are doing to promote the space, the environment, and this type of business in Brazil. I'm pretty sure that we we are having a very good projects in Brazil that will transform the financial market in a best place to be, and also the regulators, they are more comfortable to work with us. But first of all, just to explain the AB Fintechs, the Brazilian Association of Fintechs, we started in 2016, as you can say in the presentation. The main focus was regulation, and now is still are the regulation. The next one, please.
Next slide.
Yes, please. We have some pillars that guide our existence, promote business between fintechs and the ecosystem at all, and companies and other banks, for example. It's important to mention that because fintech, we believe that we can complement the environment. It's not fintech or banks. We believe that is fintech and banks and other financial institutions. So we are here to be part of that with all the entities that they are doing a good job also. The regulatory piece for us is very important also. We need to talk with all regulators, CVM, it's our SEC, central bank on a daily basis almost, to show the innovation, to show how we can handle it between the regulatory space. Educate population. So we have a lack of financial education in Brazil. So we need to take care of that, to try to help, and then to try to bring more education at all for everyone, and also the social impact. In fact, sometimes fintech, they don't use this statement, but we believe in AB Fintechs that all fintechs, they have this social impact, positive social impact in your DNA. So for us, this piece is very important also. The next slide, please. Our sponsors. So we do not charge any members to be part of the AB Fintechs, but nowadays we have sponsors that can help us to exist. So we have, for example, our stock exchange, we have MasterCard globally, we have TOTUS is a technology company, we have, for example, Pinheironet, it's a law firm that help us especially with this regulatory space, and CP, Ingenico, and Banrisul. So all companies that want to have this relationship with fintechs can be our sponsors. Next one, please. We are growing a lot. So nowadays we have almost 400 members. These numbers was for the last month. I believe in this month we have more. And then we have, it's very important to say that we have working groups. So in these working groups, we can have the members, we can have the sponsors, and also people that wanted to talk with us about all the projects that we are inside, like Sandbox. We have a Sandbox for the Central Bank. We have a Sandbox from the CVM. We have open banking that I will say a little bit after that. We have PIX. PIX is a very, very huge project in Brazil also. And then we can be part of this project inside the working groups. So it's an open conversation that we have in an association to discuss everything that is happening, the innovation and all possibilities that we can have also. The next slide, please. Some shares from the association, especially for the COVID happening. We spoke with all large numbers of members, and then we list everything that they wanted to show to central bank, like we needed to include payment fintechs to distribute, for example, the Corona voucher in Brazil. Corona voucher in Brazil is it's money that the government is providing to the population that don't have, for example, a job now because of the pandemic. And then nowadays, this Corona voucher, they are distributing in Caixa Econômica Federal. And then we are trying to include the payment fintechs in this type of distribution. And unfortunately, now we are open our main problems because, for example, we have a huge part of the population without a bank account. And this piece of the population, they are trying to have this money, but they are having a lot of difficulties. So we write a letter to Caixa Econômica Federal to proposing the partnership with fintechs to help in this distribution. So we write a letter and send it to the president of Caixa Econômica Federal, the entity that is responsible to do this distribution. Also, we did a letter, not with Mastercard and the Mac Rio, no, with all members of the AB Fintechs. They said to us a lot of things that we can do to promote the fintech environment. And then we presented each to the central bank in Brazil, a lot of options, a lot of ideas that we can have to be more prepared, not only to be more prepared, but to include fintechs in this help for the population, payments and credit fintechs. So allow that fintechs can, for example, helping this credit problem, for example, to use the technology from fintech to distribute more this credit for the population, for the companies. And then nowadays we are seeing that a lot of things is happening. And we saw the effort that the central bank, but not only central bank, a lot of other government entities, they are doing a very, very good job to trying to promote everything that we showed this. And then we are seeing the effort, and we don't know if will be applied, but the main reason is to show that fintechs are available to help in this period of time. The next one, please. Open banking it's one of the main reason, main work that we are doing in AB Fintechs is a huge project in Brazil. Is just to share client information between entities. So the data from the clients should be from the clients, and the clients own your data. And now if the clients wanted to share your data with one entity or another entity, they can do it, but entities can ensure that these environments are secured, is secured. So we are just discussing nowadays how we can do this in a security space, the type of technology that we use, who will be responsible for that, and then is a very good project to to promote our financial market, but not only to promote more innovation, to promote, for example, more security for sure, and then promote more access to financial services from the population. Next one. Pix is the instant payment, is the name of our project, instant payment. It's interesting to talk about that because yesterday we had a notice that WhatsApp now can allow payments between WhatsApp using WhatsApp. So you can share money with your friends, with your clients using WhatsApp. For us, it's very special moment because we are just now also discussing Pix, and then I believe everything that we will do in WhatsApp we can also do with Pix. So it's different projects that can help each other. Then in Brazil we don't have this type of instant payment yet. The payments in Brazil they depend, for example, for a batch. So we needed to have 1-2 hours to waiting your payments. Or if you are paying boleto is like our invoice, we needed to wait in 1 day. So the idea here is promoting more fast and 24 hours, 7 days per week payments. So every time that we want to have a payment, we can have a payment. And then it's a strong project, it's a big project that can provide a very good movement inside central bank. And then we are seeing the market going together with this innovation. As I told you, like WhatsApp promoting this type of payments. So it's a very good sign that we are in the best way to promote this type of payments. The next one.
Thank you very much, Ingrid, for sharing the overview of the Brazilian ecosystem. I think it's extremely of high use to the audience, and we thank you so much for your valuable time. We'll now begin with a moderated panel discussion for 45 minutes, followed by audience questions for the last 15 minutes. I would now like to present our panelists to you. We have Mr. Guilherme Lago, Vice President of Finance, Nubank, Mr. Thiago Alvarez, founder and CEO of Dia-Bolso, Mr. Guilherme Mota, country head, India for Salary Fits. We have Mr. Gustavo Torres, Chief Innovation and Experience Officer and Partner, C6 Bank.
And we have Mr. Arnab Kumar, India Director of Strategy, Masters Fintech. We have Mr. Sudhir Segal, Country Head for Enterprise Business of PayU India. And also Mr. Rahul Kotari, Chief Business Officer, Razorpay. Chief Shivangi, over to you.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We're extremely excited to now, start the panel discussion on fintech ecosystem of both the countries. Thank you so much to each one of you for joining us. I think Salary Fit is one company which is operational both in India and in Brazil, and that's why my first question goes to Mr. Guilherme Mota. That being a startup which operates in both India and Brazil, what synergies do you see? How do you see the two markets to be similar or different?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for Embassy of Brazil here in Delhi and Invest in India for organizing that. I'm pretty happy for being part of this webinar for the second time as well. I was part with my other two colleagues, Pedro and Ingrid, in the event last year in Mumbai. So going to your point and your question, like what would be the similarities or challenge that both countries are facing now for startups? In my personal opinion, I can say that both countries, we face a lot of bureaucratic points, economic challenge as well. We can already see a lot of companies being affected by this COVID-19 crisis. But I've been living here in India now for the last 5 years. And there are a few points in India that I think that with Brazil, we could have better cooperation and understand about that. Like India right now, we have around 50,000 startups. We have a lot of programs as NASCON with 10,000 startups, as in Startup India as well, a program promoted by government of India, where we are seeing every single day 2 and 3 other startups, particularly tech startups, starting their activities in India. So we have like tax benefits around it. We have government programs also supporting, like for example, if we want to apply as an Indian startup to start business in another foreign country, we have some support from institutions such as Invest in India. So I believe that the full picture of the startup scenario here in India is a little bit further than Brazil, but both of the countries, we have a lot of challenge to deal every single day.
Great, Guilherme. Thank you so much for your sharing a bit of your experience as a Brazilian who, like me, has been spending some time here in India. So my question now goes to Mr. Sudhir Segal from UK. Mr. Segal, from Suniti's presentation, we've seen that the fintech sector in India has, let's say, had an impressive growth over the past decade. Of course, from one hand, we've seen an increase. This increase is due to the major penetration of mobile internet. And on the other hand, we had this seamless infrastructure, let's say interconnection infrastructure that was provided by the very famous India stack. So my question is with regards to specifically your company, which is a major provider, a payment gateway provider. How have you seen the market here in India evolve? And then maybe if we compare this, let's say 10 years with the last 3 months that also Suniti mentioned, how has the operation of PayU here in India been affected?
Thanks, Pedro. Sorry, your voice was breaking a bit, but I'll answer basic what I understood. So yes, there has been a tremendous amount of growth, and I'll just go a little back. See, when demonetization happened, the first thing that grew was the physical POS machines. Then I was in a bank, and since the bank was in the middle of the entire flow, the entire universe exploded because every merchant wanted to figure out a way to collect cash. If you look at now, if I look at COVID and if I look at the current growth scenario also, it's very similar. The SMBs have again exploded. They have a POS, but they now want to go digital. They need to figure out how do they reach the customer who's not willing to step out, or reach to a customer who's limited or is very specific in buying. So whether it's the end consumer, I believe that the growth rates are tremendous because a lot of customization is happening. You can already see PayU investing in ePOS. We are investing in mobile link-based solutions. We are doing all the digital products. You know, even if you look at providing solutions to SME or to the NBFCs, NBFCs are going through a sea change right now because of the environment. They want to collect fast. So PayU is trying to make sure that every segment of the chain is covered, right? And that growth which we are seeing, whether it's the OTT segment or whether it's the healthcare segment, it is making us believe that the next 2 years will completely change the way the ecosystem is currently there.
Thank you so much, Sudhir, for sharing your insights. Of course, we see it extremely promising as well, and we only hope for an upward journey here. So my next question is for Mr. Torres. According to the McKinsey Brazil Digital Report 2020, C6 Bank has been fastest among the purely digital banks launched between 2014 and 19 to reach 1 million customers after just 6 months of its launch. And it's also recently been declared as the fastest growing neobank. So, what innovative and unique solutions provided by C6 Bank, in your opinion, have kind of led you to achieve this milestone much faster than your peers? And and I would also request all the panelists to please switch on their videos as well.
Hi, thank you very much for the invitation, first of all. And I can tell you guys that yesterday we achieved 2 million users after 6 months. So it's a new achievement. We still growing very fast, and that's something that is very something to celebrate here for us. So, on my opinion, so I'll try to describe in a few different point of views, right? So first of all, we can say that the market in Brazil it's much more mature than it was some time ago, right? So now the people are more used to digital banking. They're more used to fintechs. So they're used to deal with finance in their phones. So it helps a lot for people to trust in a new brand that is arriving, and of course to adopt this technology. So that's something which is helping a lot. So in the past, I was working in a regional bank. It was like the first digital bank to launch in Brazil. So the barriers was much higher for the bank to achieve users because people didn't trust very much in the brand. They didn't know how to bank in the phone yet. So it was kind of difficult to explain and to acquire new users, right? And then after that, we started like all our branding perspective to build a brand in a new way. So we create from the ground zero. So I'm here since the day zero, right? So we start the brand, and of course our first challenge was like how can we hire people to build a different bank? So we start a campaign where we called ourselves like the next big thing, so the next big bank. So we always position ourselves as a new bank, not as a new fintech. So when we talk about the next big thing, was the next big finance corporation, and then it helps us to position ourselves amongst the banks, and that's something that for me was one of the biggest differentials, because different from the fintech who's growing in the market nowadays, who is trying to solve a problem, a specific problem. We were raising a new market where we were looking to be a digital bank and a full bank. So from the start, so we hire the right people. So we create all this buzz around the project. The community get involved with the brand already. So before we launch, we have already like 2,000 beta testers users. And then when we launched it, it was like a full bank. We had like the current account, we had credit card, we had the Taggy, which is like a payment for your car to use in the road, like the two roads to pay the cars. We have the global account where you have like a debit card in dollars, so you can keep your money in dollars. We had investments already, so we were already a bank. So that is something that helped us a lot to create trust among the users. And then of course it helped us like with the word of mouth for people to spread the word and to show how different we are. And to finalize the line here, it's like our goal is I don't know if you guys are familiar with unbundling a bank. It was famous like 3-4 years ago when the fintech started to grow in the market. So it shows like a bank and all the fintechs attacking the areas of the banks. And nowadays, I think we're going through the opposite process, right? Because it's getting more difficult for the user to manage their financials across 100 of startups. So what's happening is like as it happens in all the digital markets, we're starting to aggregate that. So we create a marketplace where we're putting together some solutions. So for instance, the tag to your car, it wasn't built by us. It's a company, it's a fintech that's a partner of ours to provide this solution. So we start to aggregate everything in one environment. So I can provide investment, I can provide payments, I can provide everything you need in the same app. So you don't need to go for 10, 15 different apps to manage your life. So this was pretty much the combination of everything that I believe it's the major of our success so far.
Wonderful, wonderful, Gustavo, and congratulations for this major milestone in
Thank you.
the short history of Systems Bank. I would now like to turn to Mr. Arnab Kumar. Mr. Kumar, you now work for this major internet giant, Naspers, which has investments all over the world, including India and Brazil, of course. And but you have your, let's say, your previous life you spent at the government at Niti Aayog. So you can carry, maybe you can say that you're carrying, maybe still carrying both hats, right? So so what I would ask you is, from one side, as a private sector representative, how do you see the current scenario in India, specifically the, let's say, how has it been hit by the pandemic? On the other hand, thinking about your previous life, what are the, let's say, the policies that you think that are needed still for the sector to, let's say, to be given an additional push as maybe expected by many?
First of all, Pedro, Shivangi, Ingrid, and others, thank you very much for hosting me for this discussion. And as you rightly said, I have just moved back to the private sector, so still carrying a lot of my understanding and knowledge from the public sector. So I'm going to lean more on that experience. I was program director for frontier technologies for Niti Aayog for 3 years. And this is a common theme that we had seen in discussions after discussions, and we had a massive discussion around fintech themes in March 2019. The common things that came out, and that is something that you'll see expedited as we move in post-COVID world. Some of the themes we have seen playing out is that there are two distinct ways fintech companies will be operating. The first is what they need to operate to become profitable. And that will typically see them offering solutions in the tier 1 and tier 2 cities. And what is the offering that they need to be thinking of if they have to target the next 300 to 500 million users. If you look at India's fintech ecosystem, it's a classic curve of maturity. I mean, a typical fintech ecosystem has matured from, say, digital payments, wallets, etc., to a full-fledged payment systems. Then they move to online lending. And then they start moving to more specialized products like insurtech, mutual funds on internet, and finally saving banks, etc. And if you look at the spectrum of India's growth, you will see existence in all these 4 layers that I mentioned, but a large amount of concentration in digital payments, and now in the digital lending space, more so in the B2B area rather than the B2C area. But that is the theme that you'll see playing out. The one common theme that you'll see playing out in every single cycle or scale component of these ingredients is that the phygital will become the real model. So distinction between physical and real, and that will start eroding. You'll see that payments is one example where it's going to move very, very fast, but you'll see that theme again in digital lending. So if you look at one of the reports, it says that by 2023, the distinction between physical lending and digital lending will just erode. What is also important is what I have learned from several discussions is that there are still certain infrastructural layers that need to become interoperable and that need to become important for the next 3 to 500 million users. The first thing that you'll see is that, and this keeps coming in every single discussion, is how do we make KYC interoperable? That is one of the ways you can grow faster. The second is how to ensure that while banking and financial solutions are there in say top 50, top 70 city, how that becomes a reality from an India perspective in every single block, every single taluka of the country. And that is where the combination of a business correspondent model or the POS systems, if they start evolving as a full-fledged financial services in themselves, rather than serving one specific purpose at this point in time, that is where you will see a next stage of growth. That will require a lot of infrastructural investment, both from the fintech players and the government. And that is something that needs to be actively worked upon. And going forward, what you will see is that interoperability will become the key theme. We have already seen this play out in multiple areas. UPI as one very good example, but you'll keep seeing this theme playing out in several other segments of on the fintech sphere, where somebody builds an infrastructure layer, could be government, could be private sector combined, and then people build apps on top of it or solutions on top of it to cater to the last mile. So I'll stop there, but I'll think those are the key themes that will keep playing out in several segments of fintech as you go along.
All right, thank you so much, Arnav, for that. Sunidhi, just wanted to pick your thoughts on this. Would you like to add anything to what Arnav has already mentioned?
Shivangi, nothing specific. I think whatever Arnav mentioned, that's the next stage of it. And as I mentioned in my presentation, we are going to see much more involvement from the regulators. We are going to see much more involvement from the government side, and that's where we do see like a lot of things are going to happen in a sense. And there are good things in cards with things like flow-based lending, where a new framework is coming up, which will actually give a different face to the overall lending. So and for sure, I think one fact which will keep proving is the good infrastructure and the good platform approach, whatever we have already seen, and even like going forward, those addition into that platforms is what will actually change the whole thing.
Understood. Thank you so much, Suniti. My next question is actually for Mr. Alvarez, because open banking has been a recent change, and of course Ingrid also kind of touched base on that in her presentation. So would really like to understand that how do you plan for the role of open banking in Brazil, and how will your business be benefited from this?
Yeah, sure. That's great. So what's come out in terms of open banking here in Brazil is the regulation, right? So implementation and actually being live and working. It's in May of 2021. So there's still some time there. But we are very supportive of the open banking initiative here. And there are basically three pillars for the open banking initiative in Brazil. One is the consumer being able to share their KYC, so their customer information. The second is being able to share their transactional data, so their income statement, their checking account balance, credit card statements, and so on, investments and all that. And there is a third part, which is being able to make payments or transfer money through any platform that you want. Okay, so they're basically those three pillars that are very important, and they'll start to be launched here on May 2021. What benefits Guiabolso, right? Guiabolso, for many people that don't know, what we offer is a financial management platform here in Brazil, with also financial products that we also offer here. What really differentiates us from any one that tried to be in this space is that we've developed our own account aggregation technology, somewhat similar to what happens in the US, where you have Plaid, you have Yodlee, where we with the authorization of a consumer, we're able to import all of someone's financial information and help them better manage their money and have better access to better financial products. So those are the two things that we work on. So if we think about the pillars of the open banking here in Brazil, the KYC, the transactional data, and the payment data, it helps us a lot actually. So on the KYC side, for example, what happens is that it will be much more convenient for a consumer to get to have access to products and actually buy products, financial products from other financial institutions. Because what happens is if you are a client from one bank, it's very inconvenient for you to migrate to another bank because you have to fill out all those forms, even in a digital form. You still have to fill out a lot of forms, so it's very inconvenient. But if you're able in one click to migrate all your KYC information to this other bank, that makes things very, very convenient, actually. And the second thing that helps is the anti-fraud piece as well, because it's not someone filling that information, it's actually the information that's already in the bank that was validated by a specific bank that's being migrated to another financial institution. The second part, which is the transaction information, it'll be much better than we actually do here in Guia-Bolso nowadays. It'll be broader in the sense that we'll have access to more history from a client and broader in terms of having access to different financial products we don't actually have currently. So it's another thing, it's more reliable and it's more friendly in terms of user experience that the open banking initiative will provide. And on the third piece, we'll be able to actually transact in behalf of a user with their consent, of course, but that makes, again, very convenient for you to invest money or for you to pay off your loan. So convenience is a key part of the open banking side. And I think the way that the regulator here in Brazil has written the regulation, they're going to be covering a lot of those pain points that we currently have here in Brazil.
Wonderful, Thiago. Thank you. Thank you so much for detailing the Brazilian open banking roadmap and also how your business will be impacted by that. I will turn now to Mr. Rahul Kothari from Razorpay. Rahul, I recently came across some very interesting quote from your boss, Razorpay's CEO. He said it quite bluntly, our war is against cash. So as bluntly as he said, I will ask you, are you winning this war? What kind of role has COVID-19 played in, let's say, this battle? And maybe you can draw a comparison with the impact, the demonetization that Suniti mentioned, the impact it had on the fintech business.
Sure. Thanks, Pedro, for inviting here, and pretty good question for me. So yeah, definitely yes, we are winning the war against the cash. And if I simply kind of try to put some data around it, we have grown almost more than, I think, 4 times in last 1 year. And if I look at it, a significant portion of our growth is not coming because the existing consumers are doing more transactions, or we are kind of getting most of the growth from the increasing market share, but simply because I think the overall the pie of the online transactions in the country itself is increasing, which means overall we are winning the war with the cash. And if I look at it from an overall COVID scenario perspective, I think the different parts of the businesses have been impacted in a very different way. At Razorpay, we have three primary businesses. One is the payments business, other is the neobank business, and third is the capital or the lending business. And the way these businesses work are very, very closely interrelated. The idea is to make sure we are throughout engaged into the money flow of the merchants whom we serve. Merchant gets payment acceptance through our payment services. The merchant park their money into our new banking account. Whatever payments that needs to be made out are done through our payment ecosystem of apps, whether it's the vendor payouts, whether it's the salary payouts, whether are bulk payouts, or the various different reasons that they have to pay. In addition, we have the overall capital business, where the lending requirements of the merchants whom we have are served. Now, given this is a very, very strong ecosystem that we have for a merchant for the entire money movement, I think COVID impact overall has been, in some sense, I think net positive for at least certain businesses. If I look from primarily from just purely the payments perspective, some of the industries where we have definitely seen a drop, whether it's the airline industry, it's the the lending ecosystem where we have seen a significant drop for our merchants. But at the same time, I think the growth has been more than disproportionate for the e-commerce vertical, the grocery delivery vertical, the edutech vertical, and the hospital and pharmaceutical verticals. So I think overall, and also I think post-COVID, we have seen a very strong bounce back on some of these sectors. And though it's I think little too early to say, but from overall online payments perspective, I think a new I would say the platform has been set, and I think growth will start from here. It's something kind of a kick which demonetization had. A similar kind of kick probably we also saw, and it's also I think is pretty much evident on some of the data which we have, where we see a lot of merchants who have kind of so we have a huge number of small and medium enterprise merchants as well, who it's almost I think the number is about slightly shy of 1 million merchants. A lot of these merchants have not been transacting for say probably 6 months, 7 months. They have suddenly started transacting during these COVID times or post-COVID times, essentially, which means fundamentally the business models of these merchants are changing. Earlier, say a small shop which was primarily accepting money in cash, now actually is doing online delivery and also accepting money through cards. So which is I think a systematic change in the ecosystem itself is happening. Now having said about the payments business, I think, and while I said that from the overall lending perspective, I think the ecosystem has seen a significant drop in the lending. I think here at Razorpay, we have seen actually a better traction on it. And simply the reason is our entire lending is based on more the cash flow or the account receivable positions of the merchants rather than the strengths of the balance sheet for the merchants. Since we kind of we are throughout the money flow of the merchant, we know where the money is going to come from. They have parked the money in our current accounts. They are doing payout through us, and therefore we more or less know what's how the cash flows are looking like. And therefore, for us to actually lend, the ability to lend does not get disproportionately impacted because our perceived risk of the merchants are increased. Those who are transacting, we can kind of easily give them loans. In fact, from that perspective, the demand of the loans itself has grown up, and I'm pretty sure it has grown up in the entire ecosystem. But the ability of the company to give out those loans have significantly decreased, and which is not the scenario for us simply because our underwriting or our the business model is pretty different. So yeah, that's about the overall impact of the COVID. And yeah, I think hopefully I think I addressed the question.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rahul. Definitely, I think it was extremely useful, and I actually kind of have a follow-up question for Mr. Lago from Nubank. So while Razorpay, PayU, they've been acing the digital payments in India. Wanted to understand because the COVID-19 pandemic, it's made it very difficult for the customers to visit the bank, and this is both on the buyer side and also on the seller side, where they are kind of wary of using contact payments. So has digital banking has it adversified the effects of COVID-19, or has it worked in your favor? And also would like to understand from you that does Nubank have any plans in the pipeline to kind of expand to India as well? And what are the areas which you would, like to explore?
No, thanks very much for hosting me, and thanks for the questions. Now, as to the first question, yes, I think COVID has accelerated a lot already some existing kind of a structural tailwinds in the emerging markets, but certainly in Brazil, in which if you look at how the incumbent banks or financial institutions in Brazil used to operate, there used to be very high barriers to entry. So not surprisingly, the 4 or 5 large banks in Brazil have 80 to 90% of everything, 80 to 90% of deposits, branches, clients. And I think one of the barriers to entry is how to acquire customers. So over the past 2 decades, how to acquire a customer has been primarily a branch-based system. So you had to have thousands of branches throughout the country to be able to acquire customers. And we had seen that clients progressively were paying kind of a less importance to branches and more importance to digital banks. What COVID has done is, I think, strengthened this trend tremendously. So even the traditional banking association last week came out with an interesting release in which they say that 48% of all customers believe that they will not use or they will use materially less bank branches post-COVID. So this is just a magnificent opportunity for fintechs and digital banks to just seize this additional opportunity even after COVID plays. And I think just building a bit on what I think Suniti was telling us at the beginning on the challenges that the crisis brings to fintechs. And yes, I think we couldn't agree more with her on paying tremendous importance to cash so that they have the right leeways. But I think this crisis is also an opportunity to embrace changes. So a lot of those changes will happen, and it will happen even faster than we thought it would happen before. And like, for example, in Nubank, 6-7 years ago, the bank was born in the middle of what was then the largest crisis in Brazil, the biggest recession that Brazil had seen. And in a space of 6-7 years, Nubank has grown into the largest digital bank in the Western Hemisphere with 25 million customers, with a lot of products. So I think for fintechs that can embrace this change, can embrace all of the new trends, this can prove to be a huge opportunity because the incumbent financial systems will likely have much less agility, much less leeway to be able to react as fintechs will. To your second question, no, unfortunately, we can't comment on the future as to where we're going to go, whether we're going to go to India or we're going to go to any other country. I think we are very much committed today to the 2 countries in Latin America in which we are present, Brazil and Mexico, and I think time will tell where we go from now.
Great, Guilherme. Thank you. And actually, I would just maybe take the opportunity also to mention that Guilherme didn't mention, but Nubank is also, let's say, part of this major WhatsApp announcement, right? That was made. Is one of the banks that is part in which the customers will be able to, let's say, by sharing the credit cards data, will be able to make this process this payment through WhatsApp. So it's a major milestone, and also congratulations.
Thanks so much, Pedro.
That achievement. I will continue with Rahul. Rahul, I think it was mentioned. I mean, we've heard from many of the panelists here that we've seen that some of the fintechs are, let's say, pursuing an aggregation path. So they start with a niche business and they aggregate some let's say, functionalities to their, let's say, business. And I think this has been the case as well of Razorpay, right? So you started off as a, let's say, as a payment exclusively as a payment gateway, and then you've been adding of, let's say, for example, digital banking functionality with Razor Pay X and also Razor Pay Capital, right? So what is this, let's say, the path you continue taking, or is you will stop there and make sure that your business grow from those functionalities?
Sure, Pedro. Yeah, that is the path. Definitely, we are at least sure of we will take. And the fundamental premise for this is that overall, so when you look from a business, from money movement perspective, things are pretty much broken. You accept payments from somebody. You would be having, say, a large bank account. You would be using a financial or accounting system of, say, Zoho or Tally, and you would be going for lending to some of the banks or the NBFC. Now this entire three parts of my money movement does not talk to each other. I can't get, even if I'm worthy of getting a loan, I can't get it because probably the bank's underwriting system or NBFC's underwriting system do not have that good a visibility of my overall financial positions. If I kind of get payments from a particular company, I'm almost impossible for my account statements to be reconciled because my bank system does not talk well to my payments, the payments provider. If I have to do a salary disbursement in India, we have to do separate filing. Even for example, if there are, say, 10 employees I have, and if these 10 employees are of 10 different states in India, I will have to work with 10 different, at least I have to do the filing on 10 different government websites. Now, this is a significant pain across the ecosystem. And different companies have started to solve it in from different directions. Banks have kind of started from banking position and starting to move towards, in some sense, financial CRM position. Some of the financial CRMs have started to probably potentially, I think there was recently a news where one of the IP companies wants to kind of have a significant investment in the bank. So I think all the players in the ecosystem, in one way or the other, trying to solve it to make sure how this entire the how money is earned, how it is spent, and how you lend money is pretty much broken, and that needs to be solved for. And that's what I think we also think definitely needs to be solved for. But however, I think our starting position and the strategy that we have is very different. Our starting position, I think, is pretty strong. And as you said, we started with one of the smaller services like payments, and I think basis that since we have almost close to 1 million merchants, it's easy for us to start building new services on top of our existing payment services and get more, more and more hooks with the merchants. At the same time, we are also pretty clear all of these services we would not be building by ourselves, while some of the key ones, some of the early ones we might building, but ultimately the plan is to make it as a financial platform which has open APIs where a lot of new players, a lot of new other startups can come and plug in. So this ecosystem starts, becoming bigger and bigger and becomes more and more useful for more number of merchants and for more or for different services as well. But yeah, I think that's the path we are going towards.
All right, thank you so much, Rahul. My next question is, to Ingrid and also to, Mr. Arnab. So, really want to understand because agriculture is one sector which is always put at a spot, when it comes to digital payments. So, how do you see, the future of agri-linked lending and payments in India and in Brazil? And I would, also request the other panelists to kind of, share their thoughts on this, and further add value, because I think this is the most commonly asked question from our audience as well. So if we could,
Ingrid, you want to go first?
Yeah. So Ingrid,
You can go first, no problem.
No, you go first.
Okay. Well, I believe that everything that we are doing, not only in Brazil, in the world, is to promoting more liquidity. I don't know the right word, but for example, to include payments and financial services and products in our lives without this friction that we have nowadays. So, for example, now we need to go to an app for my bank, and also I need to go to the website, the internet banking. And for me, this future exercise is to, I believe in some time we can use financial products and services everyone everywhere we want it to be. For example, we are here, maybe I can do my payments here in this website, or I am in a social media, so I can see my account, my numbers in this screen without this friction that we have nowadays. So I believe open banking and instant payment can provide to us a financial market more included in our lives without a lot of places and apps and websites. So, but it's a future exercise. I love to do that. I hope we can have it. And I believe the end of the day is to include financial products to everyone, wherever the place and the app, for example.
Yeah, so from my perspective, if you look at the agri sector, there are two distinct ways to look at this. The first is the availability of finance and credit to the farmers, and that at each stage of farming, which is from pre-cultivation and then going to the market, etc. That has to be done through banks, etc. And for that, that's a more of a policy and the availability of banking and financial needs perspective. You make sure that you have the right set of policies and the right set of interventions, so that every farmer has that financial security. So that is the one aspect of it. But the second aspect of how we can solve for this is something that the fintechs can think of. And one of the ways you can imagine this isn't something we have been working on for a while now is every single farmer in this country is covered through one or other safety net, whether it could be a Kisan card, whether it could be some sort of a direct benefits transfers, etc. Can we start thinking of building products, which is, as Suniti mentioned, a flow-based lending product? I mean, you know for a fact that several of these farmers have some sort of a monthly direct benefits being transferred into their, say, their Kisan account or Jan Dhan account, etc. Can we try to smoothen the demand for money and the supply for money, demand for credit and supply of income into these farmers' bank account? If we can try building that kind of a product, that could be one way fintechs can be extremely relevant and can play this segment. However, having said that, agri is a very unpredictable segment. So I do understand the resistance on part of fintechs themselves to dive deep into this segment. But this is one of the ways that it could be thought of. But the bigger aspect of availability of finance and credit is a more of a policy and a banking decision than a technology and fintech startup discussion.
Great, Arnab. Thank you very much.
Pedro, I'll just add a couple of points
yes,
here. From a, like agri fintech is very close to our heart and what we do. So as Arnav rightly said, there are like a lot of these areas where a lot of things can be done, and the good part is a lot of banks have started looking at it, and we all know that like this sector is complex. So this is not like simple in any angle, and there are various parameters, various things around it. I mean, as we know, even in the banking sector, there have been multiple mandates that have been given to banks to disburse farm loans. And if you really look at the numbers are really, really bad. And every quarter we have gone to these banking committee meetings, and the numbers that actually comes from banks is very, very low. The penetration, I mean, it's like like government gives out money saying that like farmers loan disbursement should be of this magnitude, and there are enormous problems because of which banks comes back saying that we are not able to do this. So one thing that we have seen in last few years is there is one thing that can solve this is for sure technology. And it's good to see that there are some new age fintechs who are trying to solve these kind of problems. So even like I'll pick up Jai Kisan, the example that I had given you. So we're working with Jai Kisan in a like still a pilot project where we're looking at, let's say there are group loan kind of schemes that are out there, and we had seen that, like, in a normal scenario, banks are actually not approving the loans because of various stringent rules that they are working on. And like, the typical credit assessment is not something that you can apply on farmers as is. So that alternate data need to come into picture, and that is something which will actually help us in even assessing the farmers in a different way. And also, like, in addition to that, you'll also have to look at the leverage that we have been saying, that uh, mobile is a leverage, smartphone is a leverage that we are talking about, but there are many farmers who do not have access to smartphone. So that's where, like, combining like multiple parameters is a way to go. And it's a positive trend, and I'll always like, happy to work with new age fintechs to do multiple POCs in various areas to actually solve the real problem for farmers.
Great, Suniti. Thank you so much. I would like now to ask Mr. Sudhir Segal, and also I would like to bring in Guy Mota to the discussion here. Well, PayU is what we can call a fintech, but not necessarily a startup, right? Because it's been active since 2002, and they have multiple operations. First, I'd like to know what's actually has driven, let's say, what is actually the attractive factor of the Indian market, and how these operations in multiple countries have benefited your, let's say, your business here in India. And the same thing to Guilherme Mota. SalaryFits is a spin-off of Zetrasoft, based in Belo Horizonte. SalaryFits itself is let's say, a really multinational company, right? You're based in London, but you have multiple offices around the world. So how has, let's say, your operations here in India, or let's say your pitch here in India has, let's say, benefited from all the experience you have all over the world?
Yeah.
First.
Should I go first?
Sure, please.
Yeah. Thanks. So a couple of things as far as the Indian landscape is concerned. A couple of things which PayU has done is first is to not only expand in the Indian landscape, which is to not only ensure that the right acquisitions have been made, which is whether it's Citrus or whether it's Bibmo or whether it's PaySense. So one is that we have the way we have looked at the Indian market. So we have spread our wings in terms of the right acquisitions which have happened, which gives us a lot of data, a lot of understanding of the Indian market, which helps us to go abroad. Whereas we have also used our presence all over the places where we are in. So in terms of any player which wants to look at Indian market, we have something called as PayU Hub, where we can provide solutions to those set of merchants who are trying to operate in India. Not only that, we are also able to provide our global vault services, which are there, which helps them to do a lot of analysis, right, and bring out that solution for their customers, right? So both ways, merchants or who are planning to do business in India, or the customers who are in India and want to look at outside. I think the PayU international team comes together and brings that particular knowledge in terms of technology, which is how the other markets operate, in terms of solutions like PayU are, and makes that entire process extremely seamless. Yeah, over to you.
Thank you very much. So yes, thank you for your question, Pedro. And firstly, I would say that we are proud of being an international company, but I can relate more SalaryFits as a global startup than a multinational. We have been doing that in Brazil for the last 20 years. In Brazil, we are market leader on salary deduction management. So we have operations with our Brazilian Navy, our Brazilian Air Force, a lot of other public entities as well, big multinational companies. And yeah, since like 4 to 5 years ago, our chairman and founder, Mr. Renato Araújo, thought that like, why not we could replicate that experience globally, or at least to few other countries that we see a lot of potential synergies. So we started with Mexico, later that we went to Europe. So we started in UK, Portugal, Italy, Spain, and India as being the first country for our Asian or Pan-Asian operations. I can say that this experience as a small startup setup, it's really important, because all the operations that we started, that have been doing in Brazil for the last 20 years, and suddenly starting in Mexico, and just to give an example, in Brazil we have like our monthly payroll cut in 30 days as a monthly operation, but in Mexico we have that like every 15 days. So we started to learn the case in different countries, and also bringing the best practice and experience to the other countries that we are. So I can say that, and my Brazilian friends here can say that Brazil, it's not an easy market. Of course, the financial system in Brazil, it's a very tough and competitive one, as well doing business in India. But understanding the both needs, also for the financial inclusion needs that currently we are facing in both countries, and again bringing the best practices in all the other countries that we are working with, and more than that, bringing experience from even other countries. Now we work in a global economy, so it was really important for our global expansion.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights, Mr. Sehgal and Mr. Mota. Since we are towards the end of the webinar, so just as the last question, wanted to understand, since we have a lot of startups who have joined us from India and from Brazil who are in the fintech sector, and of course they have interest in the corresponding market. So my question goes out to Mr. Lago, Mr. Alvarez, and Mr. Torres as well, in terms of any tips for Indian startups who are looking at Brazil as a market, something which of course worked very well for you, and some things that they should look out for when they're looking at Brazil as the corresponding market. And of course, I would further want to ask the same question to our Indian panelists as well. So, Mr. Lau, we could just start from you.
I know, thanks. Look, I think the best way to start is to acknowledge that the markets couldn't be more different, right? So yes, we do have this kind of a macro trend and digitalization, demonetization, emerging markets, but the similarities somehow stop there. So I think if you want to have something compelling, a deeper understanding of the customer base in Brazil, as well as the opposite, the Indian, is fairly relevant. And I would strongly suggest both ways, that you explore partnering with local players or with foreign players that already have deep knowledge in the country, because it is very tempting to put the emerging markets within the same bucket. But I think in most cases, it's a very big mistake. So I think recognizing the difference is one of the most important tips, if I may give.
If we could hear from you.
Yeah, I think Guy mentioned like pretty much what I believe as well. Brazil, it's a very particular market, and if I may suggest, like the one thing that I'd say for the startups here in Brazil as well, it's like instead of trying to kill a bank or to dominate the market, try to understand, because at the end, everyone wants to be a bank, right? So if you're trying to kill a bank, you're trying to kill yourself in the future as well. So maybe try to partner up, try to understand the regulations. Brazil, it's very complicated on regulation and aspect, but we also have a lot of opportunities here. So the regulators are doing a very good job. They're opening a lot of opportunities. So by understanding this, Ingrid mentioned very right about like the open banking peaks. All of that, it's opening a bunch of opportunities. So that can be my 2 cents on helping the startups from India.
Mr. Alvarez, anything that you would like to add?
I think they're again. I think they are very different. Regulation-wise, I think they are interesting. I think India is more advanced so far, but somehow we are kind of following the same overall principles if we really think about it. But at the same time, if you're waiting for regulation to start building something, maybe you're too late as well. So trying to figure out, so maybe my point is maybe the Indian players might have an advantage by already being a part of a regulation that is more advanced and trying to understand and being able to anticipate what will happen in Brazil, given the all the new information around instant payments, around open banking as well, might be something worth taking a look there.
Great, great, Thiago. Thank you very much. Maybe as Shivangi has suggested as a last participation, if any of the Indian panelists would like to comment or give tips to Brazilian fintechs would like to enter the Indian market. Maybe Arnab or Sudhir.
So, Mr. Sehgal, Ms. Suniti, if we could just hear from you in terms of any tips that you would have for Brazilian startups that are looking forward to expand to India, some things that they should look out for.
So Shivangi, I'll put few points on the table, and I'm sure from industry perspective, Sudhir and Arnav can actually add. So I mean, there's like one word that is common between these countries is complexity. So no one can deny that, and we also have our added complexity because of the size of the country itself. So for sure, and this is something as a part of our market access program, we're also like closely looking at. A few points which we will keep on reiterating is if you're looking at entering this market, really spend some time in doing the right market due diligence, let's say for at least 6 months, and partner with somebody. When I'm saying partner with somebody, I'll probably give an example. And since I represent Mumbai FinTech Hub, I'll mention of a program that we actually partnered with 4 different countries, so Australia, UK, Denmark, and another country. So the thing that we're trying to do there was whoever is looking at coming to India. So so we had a virtual boot camp kind of a program where you spend, let's say, 3 months plus, and during that 3 month, you actually interact with the industry, interact with the regulator while you are busy in doing your own work. So that 3 to 6 months of time when you do a virtual due diligence, you'll actually learn a lot. And when you are partnering with whether an accelerator or a government entity or any large corporate, it will give you deeper insight to multiple players and multiple facet of working in India. And the second part is if we are a B2B2C kind of a company. So there are in India there are few of the financial institutes who are very advanced. Now, when I'm saying advanced, they are like open for partnership, and they're looking at really how doing pilots and POCs with the right technology solution. And these are the entities that you should actually target to really start with. And if you actually really focus on just this one partner, then it will be really easy for you to go further. So rather than going a big bang, I would always suggest that take that kind of a one step at a time kind of a approach. And third is of course the customer base in India is so very different. So spending focused time to really assess which segment you really want to start with, and doing the right kind of design thinking, putting in on those elements and understanding that customer is a must. And this is must for every market, but I would definitely vouch that India is such kind of a market you will definitely win if you put in stronger focus in that.
Thanks, Suniti. Thank you so much. Sudhir would like to share some comments.
So thanks, Suniti. I could relate to what you were saying. See, first and foremost, I was looking at Brazil's some of the fintech articles that had come. Brazil has, I think, 4 banks per se, and the neobanks are the ones which are really, cracking things up there. Right. So you have developed your expertise. You've really got your insights on the customers there. Mobile penetration is similar. Youth population is similar. But you have your strengths in terms of how you are managing your customer, your processes, your frictionless payments. I think first is believe and completely stick to that, which is your core competence. But the second important thing is India being such a large market, choose your segment well. Every segment is throwing up huge opportunity. You need not play the same game where everybody already the entrenched players are there. So, for example, let's say healthcare. It is not even. I think it's a long way away, right? If you look at hospitality, I think it's some time away in terms of or B2B payments, where I think the penetration is very low, or SME it's very low. So you have enough and more use cases. Bring your right solution, really learn from it, take it slow, but then you know how to really play it hard when you have got your learnings in. So wishing some of the startups who are looking at India all the very best.
Thank you so much, Suniti, and thank you so much, Mr. Sehgal. And the rest of the panelists also, your valuable insights have been, of extreme use to the audience, and we've already started getting so many connect requests. So for all the startups looking forward to connect, you can reach out to, the Startup India support email ID, and we'll be happy to further make those connects. Would also like to thank all the panelists for joining us and sparing your valuable time. Pedro, over to you.
Yes, I would like to thank also all the panelists, the presenters, and also the audience for their active and very active participation. I really haven't anticipated so much interest in that, let's say, this session. So it is really great, and I think it gives us indication that we should definitely promote more webinars, maybe going specifically into some topics that have been, let's say, addressed here. So, well, thank you so much, and let's keep this debate ongoing.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great